Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back with another video. Hope you're out there enjoy it, especially those who wish to support SA South Africa. I was thinking of making like POC for South Africa, but I thought I've already done that quite a while back. So for this time, I'd talk about anti-imperialists uniting together to support South Africa due to the fact that they went through apartheid in history and things like that, which I suppose is a system that said which would that white people are better or whatever once, and it's an imperialistic system. Obviously, it's keeping people apart. So I thought, as people of colour, POC and anti-imperialists, we should, in my opinion, support South Africa. So I thought what I'd do this time actually is ask these sorts of things as a question, so to see what people think. And I suppose I'll start by asking, like, do you think that POC and stroke or anti-imperialists should support South Africa, and what are some reasons for and against and for such? I'll save the best till last. But yeah, even if you disagree with me, it'd be interesting to read or hear from such opinions, and also obviously those who do agree with me as well. So to try and gauge what people's opinions are, and as I often say, freedom of speech and freedom of expression, things like that. I hope I remember on SA's Freedom Day, the 27th of April, to do some videos on, like, specifically on events I would love for South Africa to host if and when they can. So I suppose there's suggestions that I put out there. I hope as many anti-imperialists, actually generally, especially from South Africa, as possible, but also all around the world, will check out these videos. I hope to make 4 parts. I was also thinking, like, if I could, it would be great if I could do like a live reaction to the Brazil versus England football game. But we'll see. I don't think I'll be able to, but it would be interesting if I did that, a live sort of commentary, my own personal reaction on such. So here are some of my questions. So as I thought as an extra question I'd ask in the intro, like, do you think POC and stroke or anti-imperialists should support South Africa? Again, what are the reasons for and against and for, whichever one you want to put in. Again, I like to save the best to last for doing so. I think he wants to get off. But anyway, he wants to break free. So here goes. So number 1, how do you think we could support South African startups? Again, I'd love to know the pros and cons and pros of doing so, and what do you think are some suggestions for supporting South African startups, and do you think we should do so? Number 2, also like supporting South African education and training in South Africa, teaching, training, and just general support, networking, and yeah, how do you think we could support those sorts of things? So any ideas you have on that sort of thing? Number 3, what are some ways you think that we could help South Africans to feel more freer? Also, I forgot to say in point number 2, I knew there was something. What events do you think South Africa could and stroke or should host or hold, like anti-imperial events, for instance? Events bringing together people of colour, POC, people who are against white supremacy or things like that. Or any other sort of events that they could host, anti-war events or anything like that. I suppose in South Africa's case, they are very pro-Palestine, so I try and be as neutral as possible. Maybe, on that note, maybe they could host events to bring pro-Palestinians together, or they could host even debating events where somehow in the most civil and safe way possible, although these are sort of suggestions, so I don't know how practical they actually are, to be honest, so I'd love to gauge opinion, but maybe they could host pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian people in the safest way possible, where they could actually engage in proper dialogue and debate, and maybe that could even make more peace, and they could upload such things. So maybe they could have their own version of the Oxford Union debates, and just general debates, the IQ squared debates and things like that in South Africa. So they could have their own versions of that. So I think that was point number 4, but I can't remember. But yeah, point number 4 could be about peace events and things like that, anti-violence events and events to cut back on crime, improve South Africa's economy so it cuts back on crime, things like that. Another thing I'd love to do on that note is to react to videos on South Africa, like recent ones I've seen about the South African Prime Minister or President, I'm not sure which one it was. I think it was the President, or is the President, who talked about he was praising the work that's been done to help black-owned firms in South Africa. So it would be interesting. I'd love to react to those in the future as soon as possible. But as I often say, well, I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day, and also I am wary about making so many videos, which I know, but I don't really want to overwhelm people, so I do try and take a break in between, so I don't make too many. Although I would love to do so, it's just really for the audience's benefit that I don't wish to make too many. Number 5, I'd love to. I suppose I forgot to ask some of these as questions, but what do you think are the best ways to listen to and just generally support South Africans with their own personal ambitions as individuals and as a nation as well? And just generally benefit their nation. Again, anti-imperialists due to apartheid and how it sort of said that people of European descent or white people are better than us. So I think to make up for that, in my opinion, it makes sense for me for POC and anti-imperialists to support South Africa. Again, I'd love to know your opinions on such. Number 6, again, a very biased one. I was wary about repeating a lot of the ideas, pointers and thoughts which I mentioned in the plans and stuff like that, I mentioned in my goals and dreams and that kind of thing for Central Africa and the African Union and that kind of thing for this one. But so yeah, I thought I'd try and do it a bit differently and ask questions. My cat's just been sick as a side note. I have to clean that up after this video, but it's one disadvantage of doing videos live. But sorry for that info, probably TMI, but too much info. But anyway, how can we in soccer, or whatever you want to call it? I know South Africans are quite interested in football, soccer, calcio, footy, or whatever you want to call it, but they don't probably have the resources that many European nations, Latin American nations even have. But I hope there'll be lots of practice matches and tournaments between each other and relations can be improved. As I talked before about number 7, similar for Celtic, there's already Bloemfontein Celtic, so I hope maybe there can be more academies and CSCs, Celtic supporters clubs and things like that to benefit both South Africa and in this case Celtic. Number 8, on that note, as I say, I'd love to see Italians and Celts or Celtic fans, or the club, the Serie A clubs and the national team for Italy, and as well to in Celtic's case as a club to have academies and train together and hopefully benefit from South African players and vice versa. And that's a bit off topic with the anti-imperialism, but I'd love to know what you think we could do to any suggestions you have. I'll try and phrase it as a question, just remembering. But what do you think are some ways to promote Serie A or Italian football generally, soccer, calcio, footy, or whatever you call it, and stroke or Celtic? Again, I know that's not strictly anti-imperialism. With the Celtic thing it is, but not so much with the Italian football thing. But again, they could improve relations, and I hope it will benefit Italian football, and at the same time, again, soccer, calcio, footy, or whatever you call it. And I always say that one. But I hope it will benefit South Africa's economy in this case, as with all of the ideas or points or questions in these videos, to make people think. And on that note, how can we support South African projects, and how can we bring people of colour together? Again, maybe South Africa could host events that bring POC together, and also anti-imperialists just generally, and that kind of thing. And also, I'd love to know what people think are some positive and negative things, negative and positive. I'll try and say the best to last about South Africa. So yeah, maybe what people's least and most favourite things about South Africa, and including those from South Africa. I hope people from South Africa watch these videos, in this case, this video, and let me know some of the things that they think are negative and positive about South Africa. Again, try and save the best to last. Number 9, I love to support poets, artists, and writers in South Africa, especially those of colour, as well as projects generally like business people, businesses, and that kind of thing, help to raise their profile and help them to sell their products all around the world and things like that. Again, promote South African poetry, art, writing, architecture, design, and other such things made in South Africa. A partnership they could have with India and other nations is like how India does Make in India. I was thinking that India could utilise Make in India to improve their trade relations with countries like Italy and South Africa as well, and that kind of thing. And number 10, I'd love to look into ways to empower the youth. So what do you think are the best possible ways to empower the youth. I hope you'll get involved in the comment section. I hope to support South African TikTokers, YouTubers, and you name it, social media influencers, content creators, or whatever you want to call them. Again, promoting their work, promoting their stuff that they do, and helping to raise their profile and just generally support them financially, and supporting South Africa financially in all possible ways. And I suppose one thing I could have included at point number 4 or 5, ideally, in an ideal world, I would have included it in point number 5, but is how can they improve relations with other nations, especially Malaysia, India, Indonesia, and Singapore. So for my repetitiveness, but I love to make that network, which I talked about a while back, talked about a few times, which is MIIS, which stands for Malaysia, India, Indonesia, South Africa, and Singapore. In that order, not necessarily in order of importance, but it's just the acronym I like to use in that order for some reason. I suppose it starts with M, just like my initials, and ends with S, just like my initials. How can we empower young people? Would helping South African YouTubers, TikTokers, social media content creators, influencers, and whatnot benefit them? And I hope people, again, who support South Africa. I forgot I already mentioned that point, but how do you think I did? Please let me know. I hope you weren't too harsh. Any constructive criticisms or positive encouragements or anything else you want to post. As ever, please feel free to post anything you like in the comment section, and I'm out.